I can see my sister. Hi everybody, good evening. We're just about to go live with Sarah. Happy, it's so lovely to see so many of you back for our series of In Conversation with each this week, and I could not be more excited, literally beside myself, to be welcoming Sarah Levy from Schitt's Creek
Can you
with
see
us
me?
this evening. I can see she's just connecting with us. Not see you yet, but it could be my... Oh, I can see you now. Hi.
Is this better?
Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year.
You're a bit fuzzy,
so
but I don't know if that's my Wi-Fi or no. It's like you're slowly coming into focus, like one of those like old.
Am I in focus now? I will tell you, it's definitely my Wi-Fi. I'm so sorry. Is this okay though?
This is absolutely fine. I'm just so pleased to make the connection with you again. We spoke briefly last night to introduce ourselves, and I was trying to convey to you what pressure I feel to welcome you to this series and introduce you, because I posted on my personal channels that I was going to be speaking to you, and I don't think I've ever had such a reaction from so many friends and colleagues and people around the world sort of saying to me, oh my God, please tell her thank you to her and her family, and they're what's got us through this last year. And so I do want to sort of kick off by asking you what it's been like. I know that Schitt's Creek's obviously been really popular for some years now, but in this last year it's taken on a different sort of guise and life of its own, hasn't it? And are you kind of aware of that even in lockdown?
It's a really interesting thing, because I think the oddly the pandemic really having everyone just stay inside. So many people, I mean, I thought people had discovered it last year, or, I guess last year was 2020, but in 2019, and then coming into 2020, and what the amount of people that had just discovered it even just last year was so exponential that I think none of us, because we've all just been inside for the year, like I don't think anybody's really come to terms with how popular it's truly become, because we haven't really been out on the streets. All we have is just our connections to people through social media.
And has that completely taken off? Do you feel this sort of like love bomb coming your way?
Every day. I mean, we have like the amount of messages that I get every day from people that have said that they've just discovered it, or that it's, and I know Daniel's gotten a ton of this, but that it's helped people come out. It's helped siblings come out to each other and come out to their parents. All of the goodwill and the positivity that this show has kind of put out there, we're getting back twofold.
I'm so pleased to hear that, because you really sort of feel it means so much to so many people for so many different reasons, because you cover so many different conditions of being human within it, that it appeals to sort of all ages and all people. But I'm going to come back to it, but I wanted to ask you, because obviously we're a retailer of luxury fashion, and I feel I should probably kick off by saying that you told me that you're a big fan of the OUTNET, and that actually it was your brother Dan who'd introduced you to the site.
It was, years ago, and I had never heard of it before, but it was a way, to buy clothes that weren't, so expensive, but still really wonderful. And it was kind of like one of my first websites that I had discovered that was like, luxury.
Don't worry, I've got 2 dogs and a cat, and I've just locked them up, as well as my children. So
I'll let them out, and I'll
bring them on. Bring them on. It's fine.
They're people are home. It's it was one of the first websites that kind of introduced me to higher end fashion and all of that. So it was, it's always been one of my go-to sites.
We love hearing that.
Not even a plug. It honestly
That's great news. So is fashion important to you, and how would you describe how you dress?
I think, yeah, fashion is important. And I think having grown up with my brother, who has always kind of been on the forefront of his own style, he's really taught me a lot about fashion and fit and style and wearing what is comfortable to you, wearing what you like. And what everybody else thinks doesn't really matter.
There's nothing less stylish than someone who's uncomfortable in their own clothes,
right?
And pulling on things.
That's really it. Yeah, he kind of set the pace for me for that. And I always if I'm on the fence about something, or if I need like a great dress for something, or he's always the first one that I go to. And it's, he's great for that. But luckily, like, my mom has great style. My dad,
your dad, if he's anything like Johnny Rose, has great style. Those are some sharp suits.
Those are some sharp suits, and he got to keep a lot of them, actually. So he has a large collection now of very, very sharp suits. And my brother was very instrumental in kicking off the kind of Johnny Rose. Fashion's such a big
signifier, isn't it, in the program, from the sort of like completely over the top sort of Daphne Guinness, Cruella de Vil costumes for Moira. But I know so much detail went into and thought went into each character's way of dressing. And did you like what Twyla got to wear, or are you not so much the girl next door?
Oh my god. I liked it in that it was so incredibly comfortable.
It was better than Stevie's,
that I never had to worry, right? I never had to worry about heels. I never had to worry about uncomfortable dresses and skirts and all of that. But I would have loved to dress up a little more, I guess.
So even when you got to have some of Alexis's dresses.
Oh my gosh, we had pushed for a makeover episode for years, just to get Twyla out of the cafe and into a dress.
Yeah.
Luckily, we did it. Yeah. We did it once. But yeah, it really is the fashion is such a large part of the what makes that show.
Yeah, and the psychology of clothes in our day-to-day life is really important. I think that maybe in a way that I wouldn't have thought about before this year, about what I'm wearing, what makes me feel not just comfortable but well. So I think there's sort of like one idea that you could be in like sparkly earrings and loads of colour and amping up the glamour, and then equally you could sort of succumb to the elasticated waist, and it's trying to find that happy medium, isn't it?
It's so true.
Where do you sit on that scale?
I really found, especially this year, how, we all know when we want to feel better, we'll put on a great outfit. But I don't think that really even came to my mind the way it did in just this last year, when I was feeling really, low, where I had been in sweatpants for the 7th week in a row. And I just wanted to feel like a human being, just putting on jeans and like a nice top just to go outside and walk the dogs did wonders for, I hate to say it, but like your mental health in a way.
No,
you just feel like you're back in what this life that we used to live, and hopefully we'll be living in again soon.
Yeah. So you talked about mental health, and I think that the show has been so good for people's mental health, and that partly because of the message that it preaches of inclusivity and community and family and friendship and just sort of heartwarming values, old-fashioned values, but it does it in a really non-judgmental way, and it's really funny, and so you're taken along for the ride with it. And so I think that's partly why in 2020 it's been such a sort of significant hit. But I think that your character is the moral heart, the compass of the show. And was that an intentional thing, and is that partly because did Dan write the part for you, or did you have to audition? How did it work?
So when we first shot the pilot presentation, which was really just like a 15-minute presentation of what this show could possibly be, And the character that was written, the character of Twyla that was written, it was written for me, but it was a much different character. She was much more kind of downtrodden and sad, and had really, it seemed to be that she had really let the world around her and this kind of like sad world that she was living in really affect her in a negative way. And what I loved about going into the series was that that character was completely changed, to have her, you know, her negative surroundings affect her in a positive way.
Yeah.
That
because even though all the things she mentions are so terrible, it's like
so
water
terrible
back, isn't it, to her?
It's like I went back and forth between thinking, like, is she aware of how terrible this is, or has she taken this in stride and used all of these things as just a part of who she is, and not let it affect her daily life and the way she looks at life. She's not jealous, she's not bitter, she's always kind, and it says so much about just being satisfied with who you are and where you are, and not, you know, joining this crazy rat race that we've all been prone to feeling like we need to be a part of.
Yes. And I think that, to use the sort of like pun on the sort of little bit Alexis, we should all probably try and be a little bit more Twyla, shouldn't we? Basically.
I try every day. I try and keep a little bit of her within me.
Yeah.
She's a wonderful, wonderful ray of sunshine.
So did you feel that there were tics, and were you allowed to basically ad lib a little bit and improv some of the lines and add some of your own tics to the character as time went on?
Yeah, they you know, I will say it was such a, I mean, the writers did such an incredible job that most of what was shot was written. We were allowed to, you know, put our own little flair to it and stuff, but generally, I mean, if we had something to add, we had, you know, complete freedom to do that. But the writing was so strong that I think for most of us, we didn't necessarily feel the need to do that. And the writing really gave us everything we needed to create these characters. And of course, as time went on and we became such good friends with our writers, they knew us really well and could then start writing for us incredibly specifically, which was really nice too.
And so it was obviously a family show, in that your dad, your brother, your uncle, is that right? With one,
my uncle is a producer of it. So, yes, he is.
I'm just trying to imagine my family rabble, and I suspect my mum and sister are watching this, because not because of me, because they're obsessed with you, but I'm just trying to imagine sort of taking fashion advice from my brother, or trying to work alongside my siblings. And I wonder how you kept things professional. Was there ever times where you sort of, you know how sometimes you can sort of regress slightly when you're with your family and start behaving like a bratty teenager?
100%.
How did you manage to not sort of, or did you slip up sometimes?
I'm sure there were times where, you know, I listen, I loved work. I loved getting to work with my family, and seeing this whole thing start from the very, very beginning. It felt so different. You know, it's not just like a show you get hired on and you start and you meet people and that was it. I was really there from the start. So it felt like this group effort in a way. But I've always, you know, my dad, both Daniel and I have learned a ton from, but I learned so much. I've always learned so much from Daniel, because he's always kind of marched to the beat of his own drum ever since we were kids. He's always been an entrepreneur. He's always, you know, tried to figure out ways to creatively, you know, to put a project out there, whether it's to make money or not. And so I've always trusted him implicitly, and therefore going forward with the show, when he had direction or you know, commentary on an outfit or a hairstyle, I took that because I really did trust him. Granted, I'm sure there were times when we were kind of like, you know, brother and sister-y on set when we kind of like zoned out. I remember there was one specific instance where I think we were both a little irritated, not at each other, but just at what was going on. And we kind of had like a brother-sister moment. And I was like, oh yeah, this is not just in our living room. People are here. But there was never anything that was like anything more than just something here or there, and which is inevitable, you know, when you work with your
so have you
so
always had that sort of close bond then with your family? Were you and Dan, when you were kids, were you putting on like plays for your long-suffering parents and neighbours?
All the time.
I mean, we did all of that
all the time.
Anyway, but yes, I'm sure yours were of a higher caliber than
it's I kind of led. I you know, took my brother's lead in he always knew how to work the video camera. He always knew, like, he was like tucking in wardrobe. He had the vision always. So we just kind of went along with it. But we were doing that since we were kids, taking our parents' video camera and creating our own movies with our cousins. And we actually did an award show one.
What did you win?
Go figure. I don't think I won anything. I think my brother and my cousin, who are the two eldest, won everything. But we had like awards that we spray painted gold and silver, and wine bottles that we took like silver spray paint. So we had enough to put on a show together.
Yeah.
Put on an award show.
And so has it always been that this was going to be the path that you would take, that acting was just going to be your thing, that there was never any other career for you?
You know, I don't remember there being one. I think we were, again, it's a family business, so everyone, when you're exposed to something in particular, since you're a kid, you generally have, I mean, I guess not generally, but like a lot of people go into, you know, the business that their parents go into,
influence of your parents.
Yeah, and I think we were just, you know, we grew up in Toronto, so I wouldn't say we were surrounded by it by any means, but it was just conversation at the dinner table, and it was something we both gravitated towards from a very young age. And I just remember visiting sets, you know, going with my dad to work and just thinking, like, this is incredible. Like, this is the coolest job. Like, you get to it's make believe.
Yeah.
It's playing pretend, but on like the highest quality level, and just the creativity and when he would take me to work, all of the different areas of the crew would let me do things. So like the lighting crew would let me kind of flash bulbs to make it look like it was just it was something that I never thought, I just never saw myself doing anything else. I would imagine Daniel felt the same way. And
because I guess obviously Canada's a huge country, but there is a fairly tight knit, from what I understand of it, sort of arts and cultural community. So yes, you must have been like the royal family as part of that.
I don't think any of us kind of realized. If that were the case, I wasn't aware of it.
To you.
That's it, right? Like I just thought that that this is just kind of exactly normal, and it wasn't until Daniel started on MTV, and I remember the first time I saw him get recognized. We were in a mall going up the escalator, and these girls were like, "Oh my God, look who it is!" And I was like, "Oh my God, who is it? Who is it?" Like looking around, looking for like, you know, Leonardo DiCaprio. And then for the first time, I was like, "Oh my God, whoa, weird. Okay." And then as his success grew, it you know, of course, became more of a thing.
Yeah. So, and then the show sort of scooped up and worked with quite a lot of, have I lost you a second? I think. Oh, no, quite a lot of other Canadian actors. And was that the case behind the scenes as well, that it was a lot of a big sort of Canadian production, essentially?
Yeah, I mean, the one of the great things about Canada is that with their productions, it's like a 98% Canadian production. It's kind of the way it's set up to get any tax breaks or anything. So in this incredible way, it's just this Canadian crew was a Canadian cast, and putting together, Canada produces really great stuff. And I think that was one of the most exciting parts about the show being as successful as it's become, because finally Canada is being recognized in a way that, the UK is recognized for their shows like Fleabag and, Happy Valley and all those amazing shows. Broadchurch, there's so much talent here, and we don't have to rely on the US to create a successful show.
And do you think, because I do, but I'd be interested to know if it feels that way, but I feel like it's got a Canadian tone to the production, in that sort of, you will probably laugh, but I think British people think of Canadians as very polite and quite wholesome.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that it was all really sort of like cookie cutter, because it's definitely got a bite to the show.
Sure,
but it's not at someone else's expense. There's no unkindness to it, and I think that's quite a Canadian quality. That's how I envisage it.
It's funny because everyone, even in the States, everyone is saying when they find out that I'm Canadian, or, when I was working there, and because I live there now, and everyone's like, oh yeah, Canadians, they're always so nice. And I don't even think Canadians realize that, or think that we're
my gorgeous
overly
Canadian
nice.
au pair is watching this, and she's just put, thanks, Gords. She's the exception now, Jake. She's lovely.
Canadians, I'll take it. We're lovely, nice people.
Yeah, well, there we go then. And to be the loveliest, nicest person on the show, but that's quite a pressure. So that was the other thing I was going to ask you, is that Twyla has this reputation for being so just gorgeous. Do you ever feel a pressure? Well, I suppose you haven't been out and about. When you are out and about, do you ever feel a pressure to be constantly sort of perky and smiley? And if something was wrong, how would you go about?
That's a really interesting question. I do feel like even just being a part of the show and what the show represents, that there is a degree of awareness that I think we all have, just from what the show is, to continue that and set examples of, being kind and generous to, the general public, I guess. But I've worked in like so many restaurants. I've done so many things like that where I'm so aware at this point of, having someone serve you, let's say, the people that were so unkind to me, I always found it such a turn off. It left such a bad taste in my mouth. And jobs like that, service jobs in particular, are so people are treated so poorly. And so I've always made a conscious effort, not even just because of the show, but because of, having done those types of jobs, just to put an extra layer of kindness, or a little bit of extra money down for a tip if you have it, for somebody wonderful, because it's, just those acts of kindness, they're constantly paid forward.
100% great.
Paid forward.
Kill with kindness. It's always the way to go. Yeah. In doubt. I always think that. And I wanted to ask you, so many people have been asking if this is going to be saved, and yes, it will be saved, and we'll put it up live, I think, next week on our Instagram. So if you join late, don't worry, you can catch the beginning of the conversation as well. But I wanted to ask you, lots of people are sort of saying, please, more Schitt's Creek. Can you convince anybody to do another series, or will there be a film? Will there be more? Do you have the inside track? And do you think it was the right decision to leave everybody wanting more?
It's such a hard thing, because the show, we decided, and I say we, Daniel specifically, and my dad decided to end the show, 2 years before it even actually ended. And considering the year pretty much after it ended took off even more exponentially. Like, I don't even think they could have, I wonder whether they would have kept it going had they had known, you know, the success that it was going to achieve.
I think that it's so perfectly tied up, and that I can't see how now you go back to, anyway, much as I feel sad about that, but it was so perfect.
You know, that's the thing, is that so rarely do shows get to end on their own terms. And I know that was such an incredibly important thing to both Daniel and my dad, that wrapping up a storyline on your own terms without, you know, being canceled and or going on forever and just diluting the quality of the show. I think 6 years, I know that Daniel has always been incredibly inspired by British TV. And I feel like a lot of British shows
they
end earlier than we'd like them.
Yeah.
You know, there's not.
Well, we don't get the same paychecks that the Americans do, so there's not the incentive to just keep going and going and going.
That's it, right? No one's getting $1 million an episode here.
It's not Friends.
So at a certain point, we gotta call it quits at a certain point. But I do think that it was just perfectly wrapped up. I know everyone would love to come back at some point and do something great, whatever that is, whether it's a special or a movie, or Daniel's always saying that if there's you know, a really fabulous idea comes to him, then he will do it, but it has to be really, really great and maintain the integrity of what the rest of the show was.
That is really, I think that's such integrity about all that, that's really reflective of the show. And I know from watching the documentary, Best Wishes, Warmest Regards, if anyone hasn't watched it, it's really, it made me cry, but mainly you made me cry, because I don't think they got a shot of you where you're not weeping with familial pride.
I know. It was like every shot.
But it was so touching.
I was like, did I just cry for 3 months? Like, what happened here? Apparently I did, but it was, it was a very, very emotional time in kind of all of our lives. And I mean, we were desperately trying to get Annie Murphy to just break down before the very last day. And she didn't do. She was just like a brick wall. And I think she knew that as soon as she opened those floodgates that it would be all over. So she just tried to maintain this level of like, let's just get through it. And then it really becomes a tidal wave when you realize that it's over. And it was a very heavy day.
But you've taken forward these amazing friendships. So I don't know if it's true, but you and Annie seem to be particularly close. And I love that, because it must have been quite strange in some ways to watch someone else play your pretend brother's but actual brother's sister.
Yes.
And the pretend daughter of your actual father.
Very much so. Very much so.
There might be a bit of jealousy in that weird scenario, but it seems that because of also the friendship between Twyla and Alexis seemed so sincere as well.
Yeah, it's I know, because everyone, you know, I do get that question a lot of like, did you wish that you played Alexis? And I never wished that. It seemed too on the nose to me if that were the case. And I loved the character that Annie created. I certainly couldn't, my version would have been a completely different thing, and not nearly as good. So
just different. And
different.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Very, very different. But Annie, our entire cast is incredibly close. We were all on a text chain. We vacationed together last summer. We're in constant contact, but Annie is one of my nearest, dearest friends that I just adore and miss so much. And we're constantly sending text messages if we haven't talked to each other in a while, of just like all caps of, I miss you. When am I seeing you? When can we FaceTime? Because I just
And did you meet through the show, or did you know each other beforehand?
We did. Yeah, we met through the show, and I had watched her. Daniel had texted me when she had tested for the show, and he was like, I think we found Alexis. He sent me her tape, and I was like, oh, who is this girl? And the first day I met her, she was open arms, gave me a huge hug, and it was like from that day forward, we just connected incredibly well.
Well, I know that you're easing your way away from the cast slowly, because you've been working on a new show. Is it called The Surrealtor? Is that right?
It is. It's called The Surrealtor.
But not Mutt, yes. Obviously, with Tim Rosen.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about that show and when that's going to be coming out.
Yeah, so that is, yes, it's with Tim Rosen, who played Mutt on the show. We're back in action in a totally different way.
Is the beard back, or is it gone?
The beard is gone. Tim looks like he is like a Ken doll in this show. He is like clean shaven, just this dark hair. He always looks great, but he's so different in this. And it airs on the Sci-Fi Network in the States. It airs, I believe, on CTV Sci-Fi in Canada.
Right.
And I'm not sure where else around the world quite yet. But it's we just wrapped it in December. It's an hour-long kind of drama comedy-ish type thing. But it's a sci-fi show about a real estate agency that basically deals with paranormal activity in the houses they sell.
Okay.
So it's a little spooky. It's got like a little American Horror Story vibe, season 1 vibe to it, but it's about spooky haunted houses.
That sounds
and it's
exciting.
Such a ride.
And really different.
It's really fun. Really fun. So different.
Okay. Listen, I'm so conscious that I've kept you for so long, but not at all. One question I really wanted to ask you was, do you ever wonder what's happening to Twyla now and about what she would do with that lottery? I know that she's obviously bought the cafe and decided to stay there, but do you sort of ever think about what might be happening to her now? And
my dream for Twyla, where I think she is now, is just, owning the cafe. She's in the town. She has a gorgeous little house. She has a child, perhaps, with a wonderful guy. And I hope she's rewriting her family's past into an incredibly uplifting and wonderful, happy future. I can't imagine with her disposition she would be anywhere less than completely content with her wonderful life. So I hope that's where Twyla is. Twyla.
I hope that for her too. I just think she deserves everything, doesn't she? And
she does.
Thank you so much for giving us your time.
This has been so much fun.
I love being able to speak to people outside of my home. Whilst we were on the phone last night, we got put back into another national lockdown. So I was much preferring chatting to you than listening to that depressing news. But the most important thing is that we all stay safe and protect each other.
That is the most important thing. Yes.
If anyone left on the planet has not seen Schitt's Creek, you absolutely must. It's just sublime. It's beautifully acted, beautifully written, and it just brings so much happiness to so many people, myself included. And my sister's also put on a mention here. She wants me to ask you if you'd like to come and spend next Christmas with your family, with my family.
100%.
There we go. You've said it publicly, so it's happening.
Let me know when. I'll book my flights. I'll do it now.
A Welsh Christmas.
Yes. I've never been in London for Christmas, or in the UK for Christmas, for that matter.
There we go. We can make it happen.
I am down and ready.
Thank you for being such a fan of the OUTNET, and thank you so much for your time this evening. We really appreciate you.
Thank you so much. So nice to talk to you.
So my love to all of your family, and my thanks to everyone on the cast. It was brilliant.
I will, and you too. All your kids.
Okay. Sorry they came and met you. Yeah.
I loved it. It was fantastic. They're adorable.
All right. Thank you again. Bye, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us, everybody. Good night.
We'll talk to you soon. Bye, everyone.
Bye.